Acharya, Shwata Shatashi Shimati Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 All right, so we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 18. And before we get into that, I'll just read one article on Devananda Pandit. Or sorry, my bad. Sri Jagadish Pandit. It's not working. So this is an article that was posted last year on Mayapur.com. Hopefully this is the official Mayapur.com website. So read that. So Sri Jagadish Pandit is so this is a quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 11, text 30. Pandit is the savior of the world. He distributes the nectar of love of Krishna, just like a dense mass of dark clouds in the sky distributes rainfall. So unquote. Sri Jagadish Bhatta took his birth in the region of Gaihati. His father's name was Sri Kamalaksha Bhatta. Both the mother and father of Jagadish were very devoted Vishnu Bhaktas. After his parents passed away, he came with his wife to live on the bank of the Ganges. His wife's name was Dukini Devi. After Lord Chaitanya conducted a Sankirtan festival at the home of Jagadish Pandit, he planned to go to Nilachala. Dukini, however, knowing the Lord's mind, was very distressed by feelings of impending separation. At that time, Mahaprabhu gave her his deity and said, "I will eternally remain in your house in the form of this deity." From that day, this deity of Gaura Gopal, and then there's a picture of it on this website, is being worshipped there. In Gaura Gonadesh Deepika, it is revealed that Jagadish and Hiranya were wives of the Vedic Brahmanas in Krishna Lila. According to another opinion, so there's a quote, he who was previously known as Chandrahasha, a famous dancer in Krishna Lila, is now famous as Jagadish Pandit, who also takes great pleasure in ecstatic dancing. One day, child Gaurahari was crying incessantly. His parents told him, "First tell us what you want. We'll bring it, but please don't cry." He replied, "On this Ekadasi day in Jagadish and Hiranya's house are many preparations of Vishnu Prasad. If I could eat them, then I'll be all right." Hearing this impossible request of her son, Sachimata put her hand on her head and began to lament. On hearing the words of the child, the neighbor laughed in amazement. How is it that such a young child as this is aware that today is Ekadasi? Then the ladies told him, "Nimai, don't cry anymore. We'll bring what you have requested." When the two brahmanas heard of the child's request, they were very pleased. Both of them were intimate friends of Jagannath Mishra, and they were well aware that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Hari, had appeared in his house. Therefore, whatever they had prepared for Lord Hari, they brought before Sri Gaurahari and told him, "Bap Vishwambar, we have brought everything which you requested. Now please eat it in great happiness and don't cry anymore." Bhagavan Shri Gaurasundar, along with his friends, then enjoyed that feast. While doing so, he showed his transcendental Balagopal form to Jagadish and Haranya. Sri Jagadish Pandit's disappearance is on the third day of the bright fortnight in the month of Pausha. So, Sri Jagadish Pandit ki. I believe that's described in detail in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So I forget which chapter. Okay, so we can do the go to the Bhagavatam now. So the word for word. So, okay. So, Tvacham Asya Vinirbanam Vivishuhu Dishnam Oshadihi Amsena Ramabihi Kandhum Yahi Asau Pratipadyate. Okay. Tvacham asya vinirbhinnam Vivishordishnam oshadihi Amsena Ramabihi Kandum Yar asau pratipadyate. Tvacham asya vinirbhinnam Vivishordishnam oshadihi Amsena Ramabihi Kandum Yar asau pratipadyate. Tvacham asya vinirbhinnam Vivishordishnam oshadihi Amsena Ramabihi Kandum Yar asau pratipadyate. No.
Vivishurdhishyam oshadhihi Amshena Romabhi Kandum Yairasau Pratipadyate. Tvacham asya vinirbhinnam Vivishurdhishyam oshadhihi Amshena Romabhi Kandum Yairasau Pratipadyate.
Mataji's?
Atamasya vinirvrinnam Oshadihi Amshena Ramabhi Kandum Yairasau Pratipadyate. Atamasya vinirvrinnam Vivishurdhishyam oshadihi Amshena Ramabhi Kandum Yairasau Pratipadyate.
Alrighty. Word for word. Tvacham, skin. Asya, of the gigantic form. Vinirbhinnam, being separately manifested. Vivishuhu, entered. Dishnam, controlling deity. Osadihi, sensations. Amsena, with parts. Ramabihi, through the hairs on the body. Kandum, itching. Yahi, by which. Asau, the living entity. Pratipadyate, experiences. Okay, translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensations and their different parts entered into it, and thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. For sense perception, there are two principal items, touching and itching, and both of them are controlled by the skin and hairs on the body. According to Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the controlling deity of touch is the air passing within the body, and the controlling deity of the hairs on the body is Oshadhya. For the skin, the object of perception is touch, and for the hairs on the body, the object of perception is itching. Om Jnanatimanandasya Gananjanjana Shalakaya Chakshuranvaditam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadate Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahakana Raganam Tamitam Tam Shajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Badan Sahagana Sagara Dalitam Shri Vishakamitam Sha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikas Swamanita Namane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Bandeya Prasada Shai Viratya Sangaradya Karabhattara Siddhanta Samanya Tvacham Asya Vinirbinnam Vivishwardhishnam Ushadihi Amsenam Umapihi Kandum Yar Asar Padipadyate. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensations and their different parts entered into it. Thus, living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. So, we don't really think about it so much. Or maybe we take it for granted, the ability to be able to feel the skin, the touching, and the itching. Generally itching, well, depends. Itching generally, if we scratch the itch, there's some happiness, there's some satisfaction to that. And so that satisfaction, I mean, there's definitely from relieving that, but this itching sensation, the point is that there's presiding deity over it. It's not just some independent thing that, because nowadays, especially with science and just modern empiric outlook, is that everything in our perceivable perception is quantifiable. It can be measured. So I don't know what the scientific explanation is for itching, but they have one. And then for seeing, they have one. Well, the retina and this and that, and then the nerve endings, and then it connects to the brain, and then optic, this and that, and all those different things. I'm not an eye doctor. So they have their explanations as to why these certain things take place. But we see in this description in the Srimad Bhagavatam that there's the sense, there's the working sense, and then the object of sense perception, and then there's the presiding deity. So previously, I believe in text 9, it was mentioned, I guess this is Maitreya Muni speaking this. So in text 9, he mentioned that, so the Sanskrit, what is it? Satyatma sadidaivascha sadibhuta iti trida virat prano dasa vidha ekadhar hridayena cha. So Maitreya Muni makes a point that, so the translation is, the gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1, in the sense that he is the body, the mind, and the senses. He is the dynamic force of all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where life energy is generated. So this 3, 10, and 1, we've discussed in previous classes. So let's see here. So the, what is this? Oh, I just saw it, but I lost it. So Hridayena, living energy, so that's that 1. And then this, so that's consciousness. And and then the 10, that is the different pranas, which the life airs, which Chandracharya Prabhu listed in the class he gave previously. And then the 3, that's this Adibhotik, Adidaivik, and Adi-atmic. So this, like we were saying, so the sense, then the sense object, like that, and then the presiding, not exactly the sense object, but like the function of the sense. Like we have here, we have the skin, and then the skin touches, and then there's the presiding deity of the skin. Which I didn't see here. Let me see. I don't remember if that's exactly Odisaihi or if that's for itching. Oh, that's for the hairs. Okay. So touch, I forget exactly.
Touch is air.
Touch is air?
Yeah.
It's Vayu, huh?
So Krishna touch
Oh, yeah, it's Vayu, yeah, Vishnu, yeah. Vayu.
one of the kinds of airs.
Yeah. I remember. Prabhupada says Vayu in this purport, or?
Yeah, it doesn't, well, it's one of the kinds of airs, which is ultimately.
Yeah. Vishnu already talked where it mentions Vayu in his commentary on this. That was, anyways.
Prabhupada quotes that.
Yeah. But anyways,
Says that.
yeah.
Air passing within the body.
Yeah. But anyways, so that's like that. So the three. So the point is that and there are also two that's mentioned in other places that are interdependent. I'll just read here. So this is from, you don't have to pull this up. This is from a previous verse. This in verse 12. So the mouth of the gigantic universal form of the Lord is the source of the speaking power. The director, the fire element, is the controlling deity. So like we're talking about the controlling deities. So Adidaiva, the speech is delivered, or Adhyatma, or the bodily functions, and the subject matter of the speeches is material productions, or the Adibhuta principles. So the three here, all these are being described by the different manifestations of the devatas and the different and the respective parts of the universal body. And we'll see as we go further into here, it'll be mentioned too about, I believe, the different varnas and things like that. And there's been some previous discussion there to that. So so the senses. Anyways, that can be analyzed too with the skin touching, itching, and hair. Maybe or maybe we won't go there. So one thing is that, at least at first glance, it can be questioned as to, what's spiritual about this. Here today we're discussing mainly in the purport, at least overtly, it's talking about touching and itching, the skin and the hair. So what may be what's so spiritual about that? And there's different ways to answer that. And one obvious answer is that, well, it may not be so spiritual, actually. And it's described, anyways, we'll get to that in a second. But some things in Srimad Bhagavatam may seem disconnected, especially if we don't understand the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam, or we don't understand the purpose of life, which is to understand Krishna. Or maybe we do understand the purpose of life, but we're not able to connect the different things in Srimad Bhagavatam about how is that exactly relevant. Just like we have this verse, labdva sudur lamibam bahu sambhavante. So the human life is very rare and it's very quick, so best use it for self-realization. So then why does Sukadeva Goswami, why doesn't he just jump to Krishna Leela? We see that Maharaj Pariksit, he has 7 days to live, which isn't so much time, 7 whatever. So like that. So Maharaj Pariksit has 7 days to live. So then therefore just jump right into it, that you're an eternal servant of Krishna, and then the topmost position in the spiritual world is a gopi, and why does he just jump into that with Maharaj Pariksit? So the thing is that the Srimad Bhagavatam, even though these different topics, they're meant, and this is explained also by Sukadeva Goswami. You can bring up this verse, someone that has the verse. You just go to the index of the second canto, chapter 10. So Sukadeva Goswami says this verse, this atra sarga visarga stadam poshanam utayaha. So he mentions the 10 different subjects of Srimad Bhagavatam, visarga, sarga, all those different things. I guess I'll just read through it. So creation, universe, subcreation, planetary systems, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of manus, the science of God, returning home back to Godhead, liberation, and then sunam bonam. And then Sukadeva Goswami explains in the next verse, which is very important, to isolate the transcendence of the sunam bonam, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages. So one important point here is that these different subjects are meant to guide us to the ultimate shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and his devotees. So these different descriptions in Srimad Bhagavatam there's different ways of understanding them, but the main point of them isn't to just fascinate us intellectually, but to help us to surrender to Krishna and understand how great Krishna is, and that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and He is fully worthy of our surrender. Just like we see in different, just like the Saranagati and things, and also described in, you gave a whole seminar about that last year. Was it last year? I forget exactly, I think it was last year. About 2024. I guess right before you went to India? Yeah. Okay. I was thinking that I was losing the timeline. But about Govindaraja's, about the, what is that exactly? Carnal teachings of Ramayana. Thank you. So in there, one of those principles is that Ramachandra is worthy to give shelter up because he can reciprocate with that. And so there's different examples given in that regards. So Krishna is worthy. Those things are, it's almost funny to say that, ironic, that we say Krishna is worthy of our surrender. But the acharyas, they go and they explain all those things to make us realize that. Because of course Krishna is worthy to be surrendered to. But we have our doubts and we have our reservations. We think, well, should I surrender to Krishna, or should I surrender to my boss, or should I surrender to my family member, or should I surrender to my college education, or whatever, or my job, or money? If all these different things, we may have these doubts. So the acharyas, they explain that, well, actually, Krishna is worthy of our surrender. And they cite the different instances of devotees who surrendered to Krishna, and they were protected and delivered ultimately. Just like we see in the Ramayana with Vibhishana. So he surrendered to Krishna, or Ramachandra. And there's so many different ways of understanding that, but he was protected, and he was saved from the bad association of Ravana. He rejected that and gave that up. And there's so much that can be said about that. But he was it was understood even from an early age that he was very much attuned to Dharma. And I believe that's mentioned by Sarpanaka and stuff. It was understood that he was an odd one. He was, he was a swan amongst ducks in that horrible association. And so he left that, and he was protected by Ramachandra Bhagavan, and ultimately given shelter. And we see that inversely, Ravana was destroyed because of refusing to surrender to Ramachandra. He and so many different ways, and so many different authorities amongst the demons tried to give him the advice of just surrender. If you surrender, if you give back Sita, then you'll be okay. Then Ramachandra will accept that, and then he'll let you go. But Ravana refused to do that. And in some ways, we're like Ravana. How are we like Ravana? The main thing we can understand from Ravana is that he had the tendency to enjoy the energy, or Lakshmi, separate from Vishnu. And Sarpanaka, she wanted to enjoy Vishnu separately from Lakshmi, like that. So we worship Radha Krishna. So the Shastra is there to connect us and to make us understand how Krishna is to be worshipped, and how he's to be understood, and how he's the source and he's independent of everything. So Sukadeva Goswami explains that in the beginning of isolating this principle of Ashrayaha, of surrendering to Krishna. So we discussed a little bit about these different things, the controlling deities, and Adhyatma, Adibhuta, of such things. And we also see here too. But anyways, so we spoken about that. So another angle of looking at these different things, these bodily functions. So it's mentioned here that the living entities feel itching, and then they're happy to touch. So there's so many different things to touch in the material world. There's a table, and there's soft beds. So then that's like a big thing too. I remember Mukundata Prabhu came. I had to go and go bed shopping because we were trying to get a bed and then take it back. So anyways, I forgot who was it that told me. I think it was Janana Krishna Prabhu. He said, whatever's it doesn't matter how expensive it is, we're just going to take it back anyway. So just get the best bed that they have. So anyways, I was telling him, I don't know if I'm the guy for this because I haven't like laid in a bed in 10 years. And so anyways, they like took me and, to see all the different beds and like, wow, this bed is like so amazing and this and that. And so they had me like sit in the bed. And so it was like, whatever. It was I sat in the bed and I was like, okay. I was like, so this is like a good bed. And they were all like fired up about it and like, yeah, this is like so amazing and this and that. And then they have like, of course, like their analysis of like why a bed is so good and everything. And I say, well, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I haven't slept like laid in a bed in 10 years, so I don't really like know like what's good and what's not good. It just like, it didn't really feel that comfortable to me. So anyways, like after some time, like we just decided it'd just be better to get a bed at Walmart because there was like a whole thing with getting a bed from there. So the thing is that people they get all these fancy beds and then memory foam and this and that and then high thread counts and then like they have their whole, to enjoy the sense of touch and to feel nice because, like, and then it's like like for instance, like right now it's cold, it's snowing, but then there's people that are like sleeping outside. So that's not pleasing to their sense of touch. And then people too on the bodily platform, they try to go and comfort people. So then they go pass out blankets or something or whatever. I don't think people are passing out blankets right now. But they try to comfort people, their sense of touch. And we may not really think about it so much, touch, itching. I know specifically, at least in the winter time, or maybe it's just the combination of winter and the dryness, but different parts of my body start to itch more than others. It's like, especially where I put the T-lock on. I don't know if that happens to anybody else. Is that anybody else or just me? But I get like rashes in all those spots and it itches. Huh?
This one that we have.
This one? Yeah, it just dries my skin out when I put the T-lock on. So all those different marks, it like itches. I like that. Anyways, my body the Gunan karma I had was for Florida, which is always wet and humid like that and hot. So when there's no humidity, then everything starts itching. So then whatever, and then there's different ways to alleviate that. So the thing is that the point that I'm making all those different things is that it seems like such a nice thing that I touch this and touch that, or I relieve this itch, but actually it's a result of a prison sentence. The body, we should always remember that the body is not the body is a gift, but Prabhupada would also say it's a bad bargain. So we should understand that the body isn't like something to be. The body is something to be fired up about if we're utilizing it in Krishna consciousness, because then we can understand we've achieved this rare human form of life, so utilize it for Krishna consciousness. And as the title of the class recently given by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj was, the solution to all problems. So with this human form of life, we can utilize that to make a solution to all the problems, because the solution to the touch sensation isn't to get the most comfortable bed or get the most comfortable cloth or whatever, or to get different ointments to relieve itching sensations. But the point of the human form of life is to become Krishna conscious. And this is the aim and direction of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is the underlying purpose as to why certain things are being spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like, for instance, coming back to the point of surrendering, the first couple verses given of Sukadeva Goswami in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, in and of themselves, they may not be considered so spiritual. Just like he's saying that I can't remember this. Griham Eshu Griham Edinam. That the Shrotyadini no. What is that verse? That the people in the daytime they make money and maintain family, and at night they naktam bhavane vinachavayaha divya chartahe rajan kutumba varnenava. So Sukadeva Goswami mentions in the beginning that people who aren't interested, they're blind to the Atma Tattva. So what do? They make money, they maintain their family members, they sleep, and then they engage in sex at night. And then they waste their lives in this way. So it has to be made black and white. And sometimes we don't, in society nowadays, we don't like black and white. Well, there's black and white, and then there's shades of gray. They just say like, that's not so black and white. But some things are black and white actually in life. And it's very clear sometimes in life. Sometimes it's not very clear. But the spiritual master and the acharyas, one of their services is to make things very clear to us that we should surrender to Krishna, because it's not gray being in the material world, so to say, as a conditioned soul. It's a pretty black and white situation. Just like if someone's in jail, nowadays someone may get arrested improperly, but if someone's in jail, it's not like, whoa, like I'm not supposed to be here. It's actually a good thing that I'm in jail because like whatever. But it's to be in jail it means it was pretty black and white that you did something wrong and you got sentenced. It wasn't like, okay, well, you could spend like 3 days in the jail and then we'll let you out, and you could spend a couple weeks outside and then we'll put you back in the jail, because it's not really like so clear. So to be in the material world is a very clear position. It means that we were envious of Krishna. And so the Sukadeva Goswami and other things are also mentioned there. So they explain these things to make the point clear that we're in this material world, and this is our position. It's a prison sentence. So we have this body, and we should understand that, and we should utilize this body, and we should make, as Srila Prabhupada said, make the best use of a bad bargain. On the other side of this, which is also important to understand, is that, as we see here, you can pull up this verse. I believe I forget exactly. I think it's chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita text. I either want to say text 6 or text 8. It's Ajo Pisan Yavayatma Bhutam Ishwaro Pisam Prakatim Swamadishtaya Samvivyatmamaya. So Krishna says here about himself in Bhagavad Gita, although I'm unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I'm the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So one important aspect of this verse is that Krishna's body is transcendental. Our bodies are not transcendental. So another angle of understanding all these different verses is that when Krishna comes into this material world, because he's not under the control of the presiding demigods. It's not that when Krishna feels an inch or he sneezes or whatever, that there's some interaction going on in the material modes, or when he's blinking or whatever it is, that, the demigods are acting in on him or something, or controlling him. Krishna's not controlled, he's independent. And so this is another understanding of independent. Krishna may feel some itching, as we see there, this pastime with Kurma. It's described. That's there. What is that? Prishte Brahmyana Mandamandara Giri Gravavya Kandunyavan Nidra Lo Kamatakreter Bhagavata Swasani Lakantuva. It's described that which is Kurma. They got the Mandara mountain, and so did they do that to produce nectar? That was there, but also Kurma, he had some itch on his back, and so what could relieve that itch? So the Mandara mountain could relieve that. And so the demigods, they turned the ocean while simultaneously scratching the back of Kurma, avatar. And so Kurma's itching is transcendental itching. It's not that, it's not a product of the modes or because he took a material body or whatever. So these verses are there to also help us understand that. By the time that we come to the 10th canto, that Krishna is independent, that he's not under the control of the demigods, and there's not this interdependence there. There's also another verse in the Bhagavatam. You can pull this up here. It's 11, Canto 11, chapter 22, text 31. And so I'll kind of like go at the verse at different angles. So 11, 22, 31. And so you can go to just go to the translation. I'll read the first sentence and I'll read some stuff from the purport, and then I'll go back to the translation. So the first sentence says that, so the sight, visible form, and the reflected image of the sun within the appenditure of the eye all work together to reveal one another. And then so the disciples of Srila Prabhupada in the purport, they say this. So form is recognized by the function of the eye, and the eye's function is understood by the presence of perceivable form. This interaction of sight and form further depends on the presence of light provided by the demigods, whose service of universal management depends on the presence of those who are to be managed. namely the living entities experiencing form with their eyes. Thus, the three factors, Adhyatma, represented by the senses, such as the eye, Adibhuta, the sense objects, such as form, and Adidaiva, the influence of the controlling deities, exist in an interdependent relationship. So that's an interesting point. They're interdependent, that they all kind of go together. So the point is that Krishna doesn't have, he's not dependent. Krishna doesn't have an interdependent relationship. He's not dependent upon the material world. Krishna is independent. That's how Bhagavatam starts, right? Swarat. He's independent. So it's not that Krishna, so it's important to know all these things. And we may think, well, this and that. But it's commonly seen that sometimes we may be practicing Krishna consciousness and have misconceptions about who Krishna is or Krishna's function or whatever in the spiritual world. And then we may say things, well, in the spiritual world, do the demigods control the living entities up there? Or when Krishna comes into the material world, what is it? Like with this pastime with Brahma, did Brahma really put him into illusion, or like what's going on? There may be like some confusion or whatever, like that, or there's it's meant. Prabhupada makes the point in the pastime with Salva when Salva had a doppelganger Vasudev, Krishna's father. And he cut off his head, and he said, just see, I'll kill your father now. And so he cuts off the fake Vasudev's head, and then he throws the body, and then he goes. And then Krishna starts crying, actually, and he's so distraught. And he's like, how did this happen? Balaram was there, and he was defending, and then how did Salva get past? And so Prabhupada makes a point in the commentary, actually, in Krishna book, that this is a great thing that bewilders like atheists. That we see Krishna here is he's lamenting. He's put into illusion. But Prabhupada makes, it's different things that Prabhupada says, but Krishna is enacting a pastime, but mainly, but then also Krishna does those things to bewildered atheists. Just like Krishna was shot in the foot by Jara. So then, he died because of that. So then people say, well, see, Krishna was shot. And then they say different things too, that, well, he was shot because of some sinful reaction or whatever. They have so many different things they say. But this isn't the situation, actually. So Krishna is independent. And then we'll go back to the translation here. So continuing, so I guess I'll just start reading it from the top again. So sight, visible form, and the reflected image of the sun within the aperture, of the eye all work together to reveal one another. But the original sun, standing in the sky, is self-manifested. Similarly, the Supreme Soul, the original cause of all entities, who acts, is thus separate from all of them, acts by the illumination of his own transcendental experience as the ultimate source of manifestation of all mutually manifesting objects. So that point there, so Krishna is separate from them all. And so then Krishna, like that, by his different energies, he manifests things like that. And so that's what's going on. And it's important to note that and understand that, because that this is the way by which we understand, just like as mentioned there in the beginning. I forget which the number is. I think that's 4-9. Was it Janma Karma Chame Divyam? So Janma Karma Chame Divyam. So Krishna has Janma, he's born. Karma, he has activities. But we have to understand Divyam, that they're transcendental activities, that they're not, material activities. And so this is Janma Karma Chame Divyam, Evam Yoveti Tatpataha. Tvaktva deham punar janma naiti mameti sorjuna. So just by understanding that, just by understanding these things, just by endeavoring in that way and understanding the Siddhanta properly, one becomes liberated. One goes back home, back to Godhead, by understanding Krishna properly. So these things are there to help us understand that, to understand Krishna properly and the right light and the right scene. Because all these upper sampradayas, what is one of the main problems with it? One main problem is that they don't understand Krishna properly. They have some misconception. Just like, different ones, like, for instance, what is this? Sakhi Bekis. Their philosophy is that, pretty much their understanding is that by dressing up as a woman, one attracts Krishna, more or less. And so, what's the problem with that? What's the problem with dressing up as a woman and attracting Krishna? Anybody have any thoughts about that? Huh? Yeah, the thing that Krishna is attracted to their blood, mucus, pus, and stool body. And that's what Krishna wants. And they also, I believe it's Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was making the point that they, what is it? I'm trying to think about how he says it exactly. But he says that they dress as women, but their whole mentality is Purush, the enjoyer, actually. Whereas the mentality should be to be enjoyed by Krishna. So that, anyways, that's like you're saying there. But that's the root of the misconception. And then also the different ones. There's so many different ones like that. But the point is that these upper sampradayas, they have misconceptions about Krishna or about devotional service or the position of Bhagavan or his energies or whatever it is. So it's intrinsic and important in Krishna consciousness to understand the philosophy properly, to understand our position as jivas, and then the position of Bhagavan, and also of Krishna's energies, of the material world, of the purpose, and how things interact, and all those different principles. And so that we can execute Krishna consciousness properly, anukulyena, in a way that is favorable to Krishna. Now, what is this? Anyabhilasita sunyam gyana karma nyanabhitam anukulyena krishnanam sinanam bhakti uttama, or uchite. So, Rupa Goswami makes this point. So, devotional service, when we can understand that, if we're engaging in karma, first of all, so devotional service is free from this jnana, karma, this yoga, all these different things, so many different things. It's purely executed. So, but if we're engaging in devotional service, but then we're emphasizing so much on, intellectual scholarship and becoming all tripped out about that, then, and our endeavor in that scholarly way is frying out other devotees. I'm just giving some examples. Frying out other devotees and creating misconceptions, then that exhibition of devotional scholarship is not pleasing to Krishna. So we have to understand these things of what is pleasing to Krishna and what is not pleasing to Krishna, and then also understand Krishna's position as supreme and independent. And so, and so this verse is giving some highlight into that, so the discussion of the Virat Rupa. And it's always a fun and interesting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of trying to understand that more in depth and making sense of it, but of understanding, how this functions and how this works like that, and then it's independent. But it's definitely a high level of knowledge and understanding that and the subtleties of that. And we also see too, in different cultures and different things like that, people had some understanding that that there was different, maybe not so much different functions of the body, but just of different, like the moon and the sun and different things like that. That there was presiding deities in charge of that. But it's a really detailed thing actually, and it's really amazing that the depth of information that the Srimad Bhagavatam gives on just how the universe functions and how subtle it is actually, and how complex it actually is, and how bewildering it can be also, just the different layers of the universal creation, of how all these different things tie in together to create an experience which is separate from Krishna actually, for the living entity, how complex it is. It's really amazing how, and it's amazing how that is created, and then also it's amazing that Krishna creates that to give facility for that propensity and for that desire. So to experience the material world is a complex situation, and it's very probably say it's like a Ferris wheel, but it's I'm looking for a certain word. It's bounding, but it's, I guess, as we were reading yesterday with Sridhar Maharaj, it's like chain-smoking cigarette, just one after another, one body, another body. And it's completely bewildering, because you take one body, when you're into that body, you forget the previous life, and then you become completely enamored by the current situation that you're in that life, and then whatever, your family, your friends, or whatever it is, wherever you're at in the universe. If you're in the upper planetary systems, and you become completely enamored by whatever's up there. If you're in the hellish planets, then you're enamored by whatever's over there. And then if you're on Earth, then whatever. And then even within all those different places, there's different, whatever situations to be in, just like on Earth, like right now. If you're born in North America, it's different than if you're born in Africa, or if you're born in Japan, or if you're born in Russia, or, India, or whatever, Indonesia, and then whatever. There's like different little countries that, people don't even think of, or whatever, like that. And then you're completely born into that situation. And then all these other things are forced upon you. Because that's the main thing that we have to understand, is that we didn't choose that, whatever, to itch or the touch or those different things like that. It wasn't our choice. Sometimes people, they think like that, well, I chose, this is my pastime, this is my Leela, this is, whatever, it's your Leela. So it's your Leela that, if I rub some poison ivy on your body and then you itch incessantly for days on end, that's your Leela. You're forced to do that. But Krishna isn't forced to do that. So the material world is a very complex place, and there's a push recently within society to try to understand the material world by science and to dive deep into that. But what is the last verse we can end on? That verse where I know it's in the 10th canto, 14th chapter of Brahma, that if one can count the atoms of the universe, that verse where that's, offhand. You're going to pull it up? Pull that verse up, and then we can end there. You can count the atoms or the snow coming from the sky. It's really, what is it? Abnormality. You can search atoms. I forget exactly what verse it is. Oh, the snow there, huh? Oh, there it is. And you can go to the English, and learn philosophers or scientists may be able to count all the atoms of the earth, the particles of snow, or perhaps even the shining molecules radiating from the sun, the stars and other luminaries. But among these learned men, who could possibly count the unlimited transcendental qualities possessed by you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who have descended onto the surface of the earth for the benefit of all living entities. So, Krishna's qualities are unlimited. I am limited, so I don't know all of his transcendental qualities. But anyways, the Srimad Bhagavatam elaborates on those unlimitedly. And so one unlimited way that Krishna is amazing is that he doesn't have to be subjected to the control of these demigods and these sense and all these different things. He's independent to feel whatever he wants to feel as far as touch goes, and then whenever he wants to itch, and then how he wants to relieve that itch. He's also independent. And what else? Anyways, there's some other things that can be said, but we'll stop there. So if there's any questions or comments about anything. Yes. Vishnu Prabhu has a question or a comment.
This itching sensation, ultimately this sex desire is also itching sensation.
Yeah.
And, until actually I read Prabhupada's books, I never thought of it like that. This is ultimately just little pleasure that you get by the skin rubbing. And but then if we analyze every other itch, and Prabhupada analyzes that, that famous memory with with Atma Tattva Prabhu. Prabhupada said, you itch, it's a little pleasure, and you itch more. Like this, and then Prabhupada said, blood comes, it's like, so, but somehow it's said that among all the types of bewilderment, the bewilderment of touch is what really completes the illusion.
Yeah.
When a man is attracted by a woman, or vice versa. It's like there's many ways in which the sexual bewilderment arises, but none is as complete as the sense of touch. And therefore, to avoid that great bewilderment is why in Vedic culture you have the segregation of the sexes and prevention in coming in contact, especially in coming in contact, because it's so bewildering to the mind. And the example that's given is that of the elephant, the big, powerful elephant who's led to fall into a big hole that's dug up by the trained she-elephant because the he-elephant wants to go and rub himself against the she-elephant. And otherwise the he-elephants actually elephants are quite intelligent. They're known to be quite intelligent animals. But he loses all his intelligence at that point. And so the bewilderment that arises from this itching, it really makes one lose all one's intelligence. It's very, very bewildering. It's so bewildering that even if someone, say, is not what you call as straight, but if one associates too much with, say, a homosexual or something, the bewilderment can arise. It is said, because there is so much is the bewilderment of the skin. And there was a Nazi experiment that was going on in the concentration camps. So
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways.
Convert people to homosexuality.
A lot of things. Yeah, there's also that verse too. Was it Yad Manadi Grihamedi Sukhami Tucham? Prabhupada says to tolerate that is what sober people do. The greatest itch. Yeah, there's that. The senses too. They also have interconnection, because then that Prajapati is also, they're in charge of that, and then that's interconnected, and then the touch is also there.
Yeah.
Like that. But the more we indulge in sensual pleasures, the more we become encaged in the body. Prabhupada would say that too. That what is this? I forget the Sanskrit, but that the sex life is the shackles of the conditioned soul. He says that in the Bhagavad Gita. That what's the sign of what's keeping us bound is the sex attraction, like that.
Yeah, but it's hard even for devotees to understand it, because it just feels so good.
Yeah.
And one sensory perception, ultimately you will see it all leads to touch. The bewilderment of seeing, smelling, hearing, etc. is to go and touch the object of, especially in the case of the opposite sex. And so therefore even the other items are restricted in Vedic culture. There's some rules, regulations, some.
Yeah.
Because it leads to that, and then the bewilderment becomes complete. So also you can see that in the story of Mohini bewildering Lord Shiva.
Yeah.
Shiva starts running after Mohini because ultimately the desire is to touch. So.
Thank you. Vamsi Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. You said about Ravana, you are trying to utilize Lord's energy in his own service. So, this point of sometimes, like in devotional life, even devotees, and they have these resources of the Lord, like maybe time, or his body, or even any other sources, like even it's food or anything. So, sometimes they don't utilize it the way it should be, So, like we see, Prabhupada, just the massage oil fell on the floor and he is utilizing that. He doesn't want to waste, So, like in this, like how are they affected with the respect to the karma principle, like not using the resources properly? Yeah.
Well, I don't know exactly like how like devotees are punished. I think it depends on like the situation. I mean, I would say that like according to one's level of Krishna consciousness, one may utilize Krishna's energies more in his service and like kind of like what is that? Be recognize that, and where someone maybe a little bit newer starting off may be a little bit more wasteful or kind of not perceive that. Just like for instance, like like a simple thing, but just like turning the light off, like when you leave a room or something. So it's like before Krishna consciousness, just like at least for me, it's just like okay, like whatever. Just like the light, like electricity, like, whatever. It's like, I'm not paying the bills, who cares? But when coming to Krishna consciousness, just seeing like other devotees do that, of course, like turning lights off when someone's not in the room is not like, the thing is like, wow, that's not like so amazing. But the thing is that they're conscious that they don't want to waste any of Krishna's energy. So at least like, we like, that's like just one thing. But at least like great devotees, they want to just utilize like Krishna's energies like appropriately. Whereas like devotees, we may like, at least like starting off, at least like I have that tendency to maybe like something, like things could be like better utilized time and stuff like that. But I think specifically like what it is, practicing Krishna consciousness, that we're getting trained up to utilize like everything, like 100%. And then at least like one of the stages of perfection of Krishna consciousness is that's seen by great devotees. They are completely, yukta vairagya, that they're able to utilize every single thing like within Krishna service, whether that be like money, this, that, and the other thing. Because at least for like at one stage of Krishna consciousness, we're not able to utilize like every single thing in Krishna service just because of lack of realization. And Prabhupada would like warn disciples about that. So, and anyway, if we're wasting something, like if we're like wasting like a lot of money, or like let's just say like we have like a vehicle and we don't take care of it, then something may happen in our life, or somebody may tell us something, or whatever. Krishna may arrange a situation to kind of make us realize that we're wasting something, or like, oh, I should like treat this utilize this item better because this is like Krishna. Sometimes like in temples, like there's cars, for instance. And the car gets like neglected and this, that, and the other thing, and then no one like looks after the car. It's like the temple's car. But then like a devotee may come and say, well, like this is Krishna's car and you should utilize that because you're using it for Sankirtan and things like that. And then and then like whatever. And then like that's like we may hear that and act on it, or we hear that or we don't, and then the car breaks down and then we think whatever, oh, like should have like took better care of the car. What that devotee saying was like right. Anyways, I kind of gave like different like angles at that, but just a couple things. Vishnu, something to add?
Ultimately, wasting Krishna's energy, it, like you said, it varies from circumstance to circumstance.
Yeah.
And but ultimately, if the consciousness is not there, then what develops is that devotees take longer to purify themselves. Because of longer duration for purification, one suffers unnecessarily in the material world due to their own lusty desires, which may manifest in so many different ways. The anarthas don't go away.
Yeah.
And sometimes so anyways, the process of anartha nivritti doesn't really like, it isn't very effective because the sadhaka is not being careful to try to curb his anarthas. And then that leads to so many unnecessary problems for the conditioned soul, due to which he may slacken off sometimes in devotional service. His devotional service could get interrupted, like that. Worst case, it can get even worse than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
That's generally the way.
Yeah. Navani Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, and like towards the beginning of your class, you're talking about that we should try to endeavor to understand these things, as far as like Krishna and the material energy. But obviously, we can't understand everything. But Mason and I were talking about this. How so it is a question I'm asking. So how do you? In one end, we should endeavor to understand, the Srimad Bhagavatam and some of these esoteric subject matters. But on another end, just by doing devotional service, the knowledge comes as a byproduct. So my question is, when does that endeavor actually become adverse to your devotional service? Because, this is one devotee in D.C. where he was like a scholar. He was like, doing all these presentations and studied Prabhupada's books. And he gave a presentation. I just saw the title and I left. He said, "Why Prabhupada got it wrong."
Yeah.
Because he did so much studying, so much scholarship, and he found all these contradictions what Prabhupada was saying, and that was his introduction to his
thesis.
Right, that was his thesis. I just left. I was like, I'm not gonna stay for this.
Postgraduate doctorate.
Right. But he was a scholar though. He tried to endeavor to understand Bhagavatam, and then his endeavor made him adverse to Krishna consciousness. So what is the line between endeavoring and just trying to understand by just surrendering to just reading the books?
Yeah. So if you want to know in detail, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, when he was here in I think 2022, he gave a lot of classes on just like scholarship and Vaishnavism and all those different things. But in short, one of the points he makes. So obviously, we should read the. See, the thing is that we read the books of Srila Prabhupada. It's not some intellectual feat that, okay, I'm trying to read like this, so therefore I can sit on the Vyasasan, or when I'm sitting with devotees or whatever, then I can show, well, I know so much and I have this memorized and that memorized or whatever. We read for purification as a service to Krishna, and as a duty to the spiritual master. So we're reading not to acquire like a vast reservoir of intellectual knowledge to be able to quote different facts and figures, people memorize like a history professor, they say whatever, this, that, the other thing, they can name all the dates. So we read as a service, and then those who are scholarly, they may learn all these different intricacies in order to explain the Shastra to those that may not have time to study it, because not everybody has time to study Shastra all day, and nor does everybody have that inclination. So those who are actually scholarly, they study Shastra deeply to be able to explain that to others easily, and also to establish the Siddhanta properly, because there may be little confusions about this, that, and the other thing. Just like the other day, we were trying to figure out who's in charge of this Shakti and that Shakti. So we had to look into that a little bit. And so, and then there may be things too that are in Prabhupada's books, but they may not be so overtly there. So the thing is that, we may be reading things, or the mood of us learning things should be to help us advance in Krishna consciousness, or to help us understand Krishna better, or in the material world better, or something that's relevant to our service. Not that it's okay, I'm going to go sit here and memorize. It's the whole process of creation. That way, I can show everybody I'm so smart. So the thing is that as we read the books, there are certain things will stick out to us, we'll learn, we'll hear classes and things like that. And then there may be things that we want to learn more, but it should be tempered with an attitude of service, because there shouldn't just be that we're just reading, and then we don't do any practical service. Something needs to get done. It's Janmashtami, and Prabhu, can you help with the Abhishek, or can you help cook, or we have guests or whatever, and it's no, I'm reading, I have to understand this point in Bhagavatam, why is Jiva Goswami saying this, and then Prabhupada saying that, and Vishwanath Chaudhary Thakur saying that, and then Prabhupada says in this purport that Sridhar Swami disagrees with him about this and that, and then what is going on? Somebody is wrong, and then you can get all caught up in that maya. So the thing is that by reading, we have to understand that the knowledge coming down is being revealed by Guru and Krishna. It's not by our own ability. that we'll be able to understand these things actually. That Krishna makes that point in the Bhagavad Gita. It was this bhakti mam abhijananti, that he can be known by bhakti. So we have to be doing bhakti, engaging, and then also reading in that mood and have that proper attitude. And so, but anyways, we see the inverse of that, like you said, that it's unfortunate that some people, they lose sight of because one may materially know more than their spiritual master, but the disciple should never feel that he knows more than the spiritual master actually. We see with Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a scholar, for lack of a better word. And Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj wasn't materially as scholarly as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But the pure devotees, they understand the full import of the Shastra, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur realized that in the lotus feet of his spiritual master, and he would explain like that. So we see that one who was actually scholarly, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was, that when he was put within his spiritual master, though seemed like he knew less, he didn't know less, that he recognized that he knew more actually. So the point is that if one is very scholarly, then one should also be very humble. And that's mentioned too in the, I'll just read it here, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Narada Muni makes this point about humility, which is really important. But he gives a definition of humility, which is, when wise men define danya as the state in which one always thinks oneself exceptionally incapable and low, even when endowed with all excellences. So that's one aspect of humility, is that one may be fully capable, fully qualified, so many amazing qualities, but then simultaneously one still thinks himself incapable and low. And we see that with great devotees actually. Like Srila Prabhupada showed that, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur showed that. So many devotees, they show that. And we meet devotees nowadays, they show that. Completely capable of so many things, but then they say bewildering things like that, that they don't know what they're doing or such and such things. So anyways, a couple of thoughts there. So, okay. Mataji's have any questions? Okay, all right. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.